Hi everybody. Today let's talk about the saltwater cell maintenance. This is an important part of pool maintenance because the saltwater cell is what creates your chlorine, and it's actually a rather expensive item to replace if it breaks or malfunctions. This thing that you see me playing with right there is a oil change wrench, believe it or not. You'll need that in a minute. So here's the panel for your saltwater chlorinator, at least the Haywood version. There's warnings on there. Sometimes it'll pop up maintenance needed, and I think it's on a timer more than actually some sort of restricted flow. But if it does say maintenance needed, you probably want to take the cell off and take a peek at it. Read the instructions on your device for resetting that also, but I think if you turn it completely off and unplug it or whatnot, it will reset the maintenance. Anyway, the first step here is to turn the power off for everything. Just turn everything off, the pump, the heater, the cell. It'll take a minute or two for the cell to actually depower, as you can see. I'm waiting for the power to turn off on the cell. You might want to turn the cell off as well with the switch, especially before turning it back on. So the first step here is I use an oil wrench because these things are usually too tight, or rather tight, to get with your hand, depending on circumstances. So this little oil wrench was like $5 at auto parts store. Just be careful, you don't want to break anything. Be expensive to fix if you break it. It's unscrewing each side, just like you would the top for a pickle jar. Before taking it off, turn the valves off there just so it doesn't keep spewing water forever. So you just turn those valves to the off position there, and then you unscrew the cell. That there big thing in the middle there is in fact the saltwater cell. So again, unscrewing in the same direction you would unscrew a jar or a can. Just unscrew it, and it should come off pretty easy once you untighten it. Then you remove the cell in such a manner there and inspect it. Now mine is actually clean. But when you take yours off, there might be goop and dirt and junk and grime and buildup in there, and you need to clean it. I am going to clean this anyway, even though it doesn't need it. If it doesn't need it, you're good. Just put it back on, and it's all good. But if it's been more than 6 months or so, it might need to be cleaned, especially up around 9 months or a year. So I'm still going to show you how to clean it. I may put a little bit of a lesser mixture of acid since mine doesn't need to be cleaned. So here's the thing, is you clean it with acid. The key here, whenever you mix acid with water, you always put the acid in after the water, not the other way around. It'll splatter if you put the acid in first. It can be dangerous. Acid is not a toy. So just be careful with it. So as you can see, I'm putting, you might want to use a bucket, but I used a cup, my acid cup, and I put quite a bit of water in there, mostly because I don't need a strong mixture because mine is not dirty, but usually half and half will be fine. So I put the water in first and then the acid. Like I said, my mixture is a little bit more diluted than I normally would, just because mine doesn't really need to be cleaned. This here is this base you can buy. If you look for it on Amazon, just do a Haywood saltwater cell cleaning base, something like that. I don't know, my friend just said that it costs around $40. I don't remember what I paid. But it has a seal on it, and you put the base, you just screw it in right there. It probably cost them like 50 cents to make this thing, but it is what it is. If somebody else isn't making them, they can charge what they want. So there it is. It screws right on there. As you can see, it creates a seal on the bottom. So now you can take your little mixture of acid and just pour it in. Now, if your, mind you, my little cup there is not enough to fill it up, so you want a bigger cup or use the bucket. I had to do 2 cups full. But if it's dirty in there, you'll see it bubbling like crazy, sizzling and bubbling and just a big giant mess. By the way, your mixture of acid, you can just toss in the pool. It won't hurt anything. You put acid in the pool anyway to balance out the base created by the saltwater cell. Anyway, I use a bucket there just to throw my extra in. Then let it sit until it's done bubbling. That's all you do. Now mine's not bubbling, which is unfortunate. I've liked you to see how cool that is, the bubbling. But like I said, mine didn't need to be cleaned. Anyway, after it's done bubbling and it looks all clean, we'll go in there and empty out the acid and grime and dirt. And then you're going to want to dispose of that. Like I said, you can just toss it in the pool. It won't hurt anything if you toss it in the pool. I mean, if it's real nasty and dirty, maybe find an alternative for it. Keep in mind that's acid. So you could put a mixture of water in there, but I mean, it's not really a problem just to take this thing off and reattach the saltwater cell. When you're done, just be careful. These seals here can be fragile. You see, and you can break them or lose them or whatnot like that. You don't want to do that. So when you're putting this back on, just do the best you can to squish this in here without messing up those seals. And just basically put it in nice and even and put the screw sleeves over like that. Hand tighten. Just like many things, this does not need to be cranked down with your super strength. I mean, hand tightening strength is probably just fine. I do put the oil wrench on there just to torque it slightly, not to use super strength on it and strip it or break it. Definitely not something you want to do. If you strip or break or crack something there, it's going to cost you a little bit to fix it, depending on what breaks. So again, I just snug it. Make sure it's snug. You don't see me sitting there going, "Arr!" And then once you turn it back on, you're going to check for leaks anyway. Make sure there's no leaks coming out. And then if there's no leaks, it's nice and sealed, you're good to go. So now make sure the cell is off before you turn the pump back on to make sure you get some water rushing through there. So you turn the cell off, turn the power, open up your valves, and then turn your power back on. And it'll take a second to pump prime. As usual. Now, you're going to see a red light for flow probably on the control panel. That's just fine. It will take a few minutes probably for that to go out. Once it goes green, you can turn your cell back on, and it will read generating as normal. And you have just cleaned your saltwater cell. Congratulations. Well done. If you have any questions, post comments. Oh, wait, it's not letting people post comments for some reason. I'll see if I can get that fixed.